Today on Variant, I count down my 10 favorite comic titles of 2015. Welcome to Variant, where we love comics more than I love the new Deadpool trailer. I'm your host, Arris. As I do at the beginning of every year, I'm going to tell you guys the 10 comic book titles I enjoyed most last year. Before I get into my list, I just want to preface that just because a title doesn't make my top 10 list doesn't mean I don't like it or that I'm not reading it. I just had to pick the 10 I personally enjoyed the most last year, which was extremely hard to do because I love and read way more than 10 comic book titles. But after I sat down for like 2 hours just picking the 10 comic books I liked most last year, I finally came up with my list. Kicking my list off is Spider-Man's main title, The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. He's one of my favorite characters, as most of you may already know by now. So the fact that Spider-Man's main title has been so enjoyable this past year makes me incredibly happy. In 2015 alone, Spider-Man writer Dan Slott wrapped up the Spider-Verse event, which had like every version of Spider-Man in it. He also showed fans a version of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage that could have happened. But if that wasn't enough, Slott then relaunched the series again with Peter Parker now a Tony Starkish globe-trotting industrialist. So props to Dan Slott and all the great artists he worked with this past year, because 2015 was a good year to be a Spider-Man fan. At number 9 is Sons of the Devil, which is a creator-owned comic book by writer Brian Buccellato and artist Tony Infante. Now, for those of you who don't know, I love horror comic books, and this is a great one. This series is a psychological horror story about a dude named Travis. He's just an average guy trying to get by, but then he discovers that he has family ties to a deadly cult. The comic is an exploration of cults, family, and the dark side of human nature, which is what makes this comic so intriguing. It's a series that I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. It very much has the vibe of True Detective and Red State, so if you love horror, mystery, suspense comics as much as I do and looking for a good one to read with great art, I highly recommend this title. And the first arc is only 5 issues long, so it's a nice, easy read. Number 8 brings us Grayson. Grayson was an odd pitch for a comic. Batman's first sidekick, no longer Robin, no longer Nightwing, but now a super spy. This title spins out of the events of the Forever Evil storyline, in which Dick Grayson is presumed to be dead by the entire Bat family except Batman. Long story short, Dick Grayson goes to work for a spy agency called Spiral. To be honest, I was kinda meh on the premise of this book at first. Being a longtime Nightwing fan, it was hard to see him out of the black and blue or red and blue tights. But once I read the first few issues of this title, I was hooked. Plus, it's only a matter of time before he'll don the Nightwing costume once again, which may or may not have been hinted already in Batman and Robin Eternal. People reading that title know exactly what I'm talking about, but in any case, writers Tom King and Tim Seeley are doing a great job with Grayson, and so are the artists Mikel Janin and Stephen Mooney. Coming in at lucky number 7 is Book of Death. Book of Death is a title and comic book event released by Valiant Comics. For those of you who don't know, Valiant Comics has the 3rd largest superhero universe out there, and their universe is pretty darn awesome, with extremely interesting characters and comic book titles. Book of Death being one of their best titles in 2015, at least in my opinion. The series deals with someone coming back from the future with a history book that has all the futures of the characters in the Valiant universe inside it. And of course, the entire Valiant universe is chasing after this book. What's really cool is they do offshoots showing the fall or deaths of A-list characters in the Valiant universe, like X-O Manowar, Bloodshot, and so on. The writing is done by Robert Venditti, which is really well done and keeps the reader wanting more, and the same goes for the art, so props to the entire creative team. At number 6 is Marvel's new Star Wars series, written by Jason Aaron and drawn by a bunch of artists such as John Cassidy and Stuart Immonen, just to name a few. Putting it simply, this series literally captures the tone of the original Star Wars trilogy perfectly. I mean, again, to me, it's literally just the movies, but in comic book form. The title fills in the gap between Star Wars A New Hope and Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and it's in canon, meaning the series is in continuity with the Star Wars films and universe. Which is great because I really enjoy this series. I know a lot of people were mad that Lucasfilm announced that they were revamping Star Wars continuity and that the Dark Horse Star Wars books were going to be put under the Legends banner. But I gotta be honest, I kinda like that they did that, because now that Disney owns both Marvel and Star Wars, they can make the comics and movies flow very nice with one another since they own both avenues. But even besides that, the new Star Wars title is all around really good in my opinion. It's fun, it has great fights and action, and it flows seamlessly with the original trilogy. Making its way into my top 5 is We Are Robin. I just really love this title. The premise of the book is that a bunch of teenagers in Gotham have adopted the Robin R and made it their own. Pretty much they're a teenage Robin gang who protect Gotham City, and there's like hundreds of them. Even though there are so many of them, the book mainly follows around 6 or 7 of them. Their leader being Duke Thomas, who's a great character created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo in their Batman run. In any case, what makes this book stand out so much is the fact that it's more of a street level gritty book, and all the We Are Robin members are basically figuring things out as they go and learning what it means to be a superhero. So if you're a Batman fan, you need to read this book. It's a very fresh take on the Batman universe. At number 4 is Ms. Marvel. Making this short and sweet, Ms. Marvel's second year continues to be one of the most fun and exciting superhero comic books out there. Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, is funny and relatable, which is probably why me and so many people love this book. The creative team has been doing such a good job with this title. The book just continues to be good, which is something that's not very easy to do. A big reason I think this book has been received so well is because it literally has a little bit of everything in it. It has action, adventure, humor, sadness, family, just about everything. It's a comic book that has heart, and a series all comic fans should be reading. Remember earlier how I said I love horror? Well, Witches is without a doubt the best horror comic book of 2015, in my humble opinion, of course. It just wrapped up its first arc this past year. The comic's written by Scott Snyder, and it's his original take on witches, what they are, what they want, and what they can do. And let me just tell you, his take is extremely creepy, and artist Jock's style definitely adds to the creepy factor. I mean, just look at that. That's freaking creepy. Witches is also a comic book that has family at its center, which may or may not be shocking to some of you, but it really explores the fears parenthood brings. For example, like the fear of not being able to protect your child. The comic is just done so well and told in such a way that it gives you one heck of a thrill ride, but also hits home on a more of an emotional level. The comic has already been released in trade paperback, so go pick it up. Trust me, you will not regret it. At number 2 is a comic I've been loving since the title's launch back in the beginning of DC's New 52, and that would be Geoff Johns' Justice League title. I'm a huge Justice League fan, and Geoff Johns is easily one of my favorite writers of all time. This book just being one of the many examples why. In 2015 alone, Justice League brought us the Mesovirus storyline, which was great, and the Darkseid War, which is still going on, and put Darkseid up against the freaking Anti-Monitor and made most of the Justice League gods. The reason I love this title so much is because it literally has a bit of everything inside it. Now, you can jam-pack a comic all you want and say it has everything in it, but that doesn't make the comic good, which is why it's so impressive to me that this comic has so much going on in it, yet it's constantly been good, at least in my opinion. The main thing that makes this book so good, like any good comic, is its creative team. Chief Creative Officer of DC Comics and writer of this book, Geoff Johns, has such a good grasp on all the members of the Justice League, which allows him to write each one of them perfectly. So mix that with artist Jason Fabok's amazing pencils, and you have one great comic book. And my number 1 favorite title of last year, which should be no surprise to any of you, is of course Batman. Now, I know some of you are probably like, oh my god, Arris, you're such a Batman fanboy. Of course Batman is your number 1 pick of last year. Well, to you I say, whether I'm a Batman fanboy or not, the Batman title by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo has been amazing from issue 1, and there's no denying that. And even if you aren't a Batman fan, you can't deny how amazing this comic has been. As most of you know, I actually had a chance to interview Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo at last year's New York Comic Con. And when I sat down with them to talk about Batman, I was really able to see how much they both love the character, which definitely shows through their work. They're also not afraid to take chances with Batman, which is a big reason their run has been so good, because they keep pushing the envelope. In 2015 alone, their run had Batman and Joker fights to the death, which is not a spoiler, that is like known information by now, and they made Jim Gordon the new Batman. And I loved every moment of it. Putting it simply, the writing, art, pacing, pushing of boundaries, and all-around great storytelling makes Batman my favorite title of 2015. It's definitely a great time to be a Batman fan with work like this being put out for the character. Clearly, there's way more titles I enjoyed last year, but these are just the ones I like the most. But as always, put what your list is in the comment section down below. First up for Wednesday, January 6th, we have Batman and Robin Eternal issue 14. Grayson, Red Hood, Red Robin, and Harper Row have uncovered the full scope of Mother's dangerous operation, and they're ready to spring their trap. Here we have Detective Comics issue 48. In the wake of the Robin War and globe hopping with the Justice League, Jim Gordon is looking forward to getting back to what he and Batman do best: taking out crime in Gotham City. And finally, we have Obi-Wan and Anakin Issue 1. This series will follow the adventures of Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker before Anakin turns to the dark side. And that'll bring another episode of Variant to a close. But remember, you can always like our Variant Facebook page to keep up with the show and all things comic related. You could also follow Variant on Twitter at Variant Comics or me on Twitter at Arris_Quinones. But I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics. Before he'll don the Nightwing costume once again.
Full Sean Connery.